video is brought to you by Prize Picks, America's #1 sports app. And when you use my code right now, HMA, they'll put $50 in your account when you put a $5 lineup down. Hard to beat that. They've got baseball, basketball, heck, they've even got the seasonal picks up here for the NFL season. Terms and conditions do apply. Please do remember to gamble responsibly. Hello and welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I do appreciate you for tuning on in. I do thank you for watching today as we just keep coming at you this offseason. Why? Because when you're the champions, there is no such thing as an offseason. And when you are the Seattle Seahawks and John Schneider, you don't stop making moves. There ain't no time to sleep. And the Seattle Seahawks continue to make just subtle, really smart moves throughout this offseason. Maybe not as much the splash and dash of a Myles Garrett trade or something along those lines, but they're just all ones where you just nod your head, pump your fist, and you're like, that a boy, John, that a way. Derick Hall, the Seattle Seahawks edge, who has continually improved here throughout his time here in Seattle, is signed to an extension today, and an extension that is one that is a win-win, both for team and player. But I mean, I might just as much say maybe for as much the team here. I kind of find myself drawn to saying here, 3-year, $42 million deal that is worth up to $46.5, which means there's a mere $3.5 million in basically incentives, which is a pretty paltry sum. This is as well when you're thinking about this in relation to what we just saw with Uchenna Nwosu this offseason, or not Uchenna, but Boye Mafe, and what he just signed, a 3-year, $60 million deal with the Cincinnati Bengals. And you look at this deal and you kind of start to nod your head and you're like, wow, you got him for less of a price. And so like with the smart moves of John, I think there's a lot that goes into these things. As you guys know with me, I'm never going to be short for words on stuff, and certainly won't be so here. First off, when you're going to get a deal done like this and you're going to go up ahead of time like this to a guy like Derick Hall, you're saying to him, hey, we're going to pay you ahead of time. We're going to give you financial security. You've got to give us now something back to the other side. Otherwise, if you're just demanding at the same rate that you're going to be paid after the season, why not? Shouldn't we just wait? The price is going to be the same from our perspective anyway. So if your intention as a player to get that security, you come to the GM, you go to with your agent, you're saying, look, agent, I know you want to get all this money here, but I'd really like to just try to get this locked up more than anything else. Let's find a happy middle ground here. And that is what the Seattle Seahawks have done. So far off of the amount of what Boye Mafe got, I think many out there would agree that Derick has become a better player than Mafe. I don't think Mafe's a bad player. I think Mafe, the sack numbers aren't just necessarily representative on either players of what they do necessarily. But you got him for the discount from what Mafe cost. And then the thing you got to consider with this on top of it is it's an extension. You're not wiping off the books the current year on his deal. You're taking the current deal where he's going to be paid $2 million next year, and then you're adding 3 years on top of that. So here's the real fun part. It turns into a 4-year, $44 million deal. So on one hand, I can show you Mafe at $20 million per year. And on the other hand, I can show you Derick Hall at $11 million per year. Smart organizations can go make splashy trades and can go out there and do all of the stuff that'll get all the headlines. They can go make these major moves that has every pundit and analyst telling you that this is going to be the Super Bowl champion. The Super Bowl champions are not built by one major move or two major moves. They are built by you slowly, almost sometimes painfully, step by step, making sure every decision is rooted in intelligence. And that you're doing things that make sense all the way around in how you do them or you don't do them. And I would offer to you with John and the heater he's been on, this is what he's done. It's made the tough decisions on letting guys like Walker and Kobe Bryant walk, and you want to sign Kobe Bryant, but look, Kobe Bryant had the opportunity to take this type of deal too, like Derick did. They came to him in the preseason last year. They said, here's a contract we're willing to give you, an equivalent to probably this off the edge for him. He said, no, I'm going to trust myself. I want to be paid. And congrats to him, he got paid. But smart organizations have a line of what they'll pay, and that's it. Now, you can go get your money elsewhere. You want to go play for a crap organization? You want to go play for a team that's not going to win? All right, we understand. We ain't throwing no shade your way. I won't throw no shade their way, but I will absolutely celebrate the players who get it. And that here in Derick Hall is a guy that understands, hey, this is where I want to be. This is the right place for me. I'm in the perfect defense for my skill set. So let's get this deal done. And the more of these smarter deals you put together, as I say, these individual choices and decisions you make, the more then as you take, well, instead of paying $20 million on Derick Hall next year, we got $9 million saved off the books for that. That's kind of nice. Instead of paying extra for this and Kenneth Walker, we got that money put over here. Now you can start to put this money in other places where the impact can be even greater to the team as a whole. But this was also an important signing because of the fact that you, of course, have the rest of your edges on this group are all either under one-year contracts or essentially playing the final year. DeMarcus Lawrence probably came close to thinking about retirement this offseason. He's going to call it a day after the season. Unless something incredibly different swings in here, he's probably calling it a day. Uchenna Nwosu is probably in the final year of his deal here. Dante Fowler's on a one-year de facto deal. We'll see with that one. So having a guy in-house that you know is going to be here for the now and the future and be maybe a leader for a younger edge group, maybe moving into the future potentially, it's nice to have. And as well, we also got some news today of another extension that happened that if it's not enough for you, if in a standpoint of looking at this deal to understand that it's just a good deal from what you saved from where Derick Hall is, just look at the deal that the Steelers signed to Nick Herbig today. Nick Herbig has been, by and large, kind of a backup edge there. He's backing up Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt with the Steelers. He signs a 4-year, $100 million extension that includes $42 million guaranteed. And you can go, okay, well, he's coming off 7.5 sacks last year, and Hall's got only a couple last year. Let's remember what this, Hall also had an oblique that cost him a couple of games last year. You committed to the rotation of depth there. Just wasn't as many snaps. Herbig got more snaps last year because of some of the injuries that occurred off the edge. And if you really want to put it between these two guys and really look at them, note for note over what they've done through their career, coming in at about the same time, 45 games for Herbig, 48 games for Hall. Their AV value, that total value they apply to a player, 10 versus 13. The sacks, 16 for Nick Herbig, 10 for Derick Hall. The tackle numbers pretty close to each other. More forced fumbles for Herbig. He's got a hand in doing that. And fumble recoveries with that. He's got a little bit of a nose for that in that way. But at the end of the day, pretty equivalent to their play, and yet there's a big separation here in what he's going to be making here versus what he's got essentially Hall beat in just his guarantees alone. Not to mention the $100 million, not to mention the one extra year. And this is a guy that's still under contract from the Steelers. Now, he was pressing the Steelers a little bit harder on getting a contract done, I think. And that's where this is maybe a little bit different, is he was maybe going to threaten to say, hey, you got to move me out of town if you don't get this deal done. But this is, again, you want to look for places that you can separate yourself outside of your homerism or your bias, your rose-colored glasses, and looking actually at the situation honestly for what it is and whether or not it's a good deal or bad. Exhibit A, Your Honor. Pretty tasty to me on this same day these two edges signed a deal. Not he signed it a month later or a year later, or right now, note for note. And Derick Hall is a fit to this defense, by the way. I mean, many people were wondering about Nick Herbig being brought in, and maybe we bring him in for the quick wins if he was to want to try to drive for a trade. But he isn't really a fit to this defense either with his size. He's more of a quick, snatch the edge guy. Hall is a fit in what he does. And that's also the important part of this deal is he came in as a fairly young player. He wasn't an older prospect. He is just 25 now, and just turned 25, by the way. So you're getting him now through the prime of his career here at his physical best. He was a guy, that came in without necessarily a lot of pass rush moves. My draft video, I broke it down that he was a guy that had Hulk hands, and that you watched him on tape, and it was just snap after snap of one of two things, where either he was going to light the guy up with the two-handed bull rush, or he was going to light the guy up with the long arm of the law bull rush. But he just had that strength where you're watching him in the SEC in college, taking and buckling guys, big tackles, 5-star tackles, and just bending them backwards. And when you take that type of guy with that type of power, and then you put him into the Mike Macdonald defense, it has a pretty nice effect to it as far as that's a really good fit between the two. This is what Mike wants. We will come to find out if eventually he will make an accommodation to his snatch the edge guys, the 6'1", 6'2" guys that are super quick out of their stance and can be really bendy and dippy ghost moves and all of that. We'll see if he truly eventually, leans in the direction of that being, where he's going to target. But for so far, he's really hyper targeted on this type of player. And we could even see in a little bit of the glint in Mike's eye in the first year of Derick coming in the rookie year. As we go a little bit through we're not going to do a deep tape dive, but I just want to show off some of what I'm talking about here to kind of remember that this isn't just simply getting a young, good edge rusher. This is getting a young, good edge rusher that's also a really perfect fit to this defense with his skill set. But listen to Mike talk about Derick on this play. That's might be one of my favorite Derick Hall plays. It's from preseason of his rookie year, and watch what he does here to this poor tight end.
On Bradford, it was a play that you may have shown in the team film when he stuffed the pulling tight end in the hole. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Bradford.
Derick Hall?
Yeah.
Okay.
Derick Hall. I was thinking Bradford.
I was trying to put the play together, and I was like,
Wait a minute. That happened.
Yeah.
No, when Hall breaks down a tight end or a lead blocker like that, how much of an example is that exactly what you needed outside linebacker?
That's just talk about how the style of how we want to play. That's it right there. Art of contact, all the above. Just an all-time great play from him, and just talking about how you just eliminating space. That's probably the best way to do it, is just knock the guy out.
There's definitely a different level of power in what you see brought to the game with Hall at times when he's really able to lock it in right. And that kind of play shows it to where you have a crack, you have basically a wham block coming back across the formation with the tight end there. That's a tight end with build-up speed. So the advantage does not go to the defender who's starting from a standstill position. It's going to go to the guy that's able to get the build-up speed in there and have kind of a natural inroads to being able to have, if you just figure like this, even if you're a bigger person, if I'm standing still, somebody gets a running head start at me and they hit me, my tendency, even if I'm really strong and really well rooted down, is going to be that I back up. And yet you saw him crumble that guy like a can, didn't you? And that's because he's got that sort of power to his mode. We saw in the Super Bowl as well, when we came up to the game, we were wondering from a standpoint of, this tackle out here and Will Campbell struggling. And when Will Campbell came out in the draft, the big thing with him was that he had really nice feet, SEC tackle. You loved a lot of what he brought to play in that way. But then at the same point in time, there was a little bit of a wonder and a concern here about whether or not he was going to be able to handle power that he was starting. Because when you get these like short arm guys, if you have to match up against a guy with 33, 34 inch long arms, who also then has power as a centerpiece of his game, I can just kind of get you like Talisman back in Street Fighter 2. I can kind of just keep you at an arm's distance, an arm's length, and your hands can't get on me. You can't control me as a blocker. And now I can kind of walk you back. I can control you as a player. So this was the big concern with Will Campbell because he had little short stubby arms, not a lot of stubby arm tackles in the league. Most of them have to have a prerequisite of length. And so in this matchup coming up against the Patriots in the Super Bowl, this is a little bit of why you get the pure fit to Mike Macdonald's defense in a Derick Hall. Because what you see here is, as I've called it, there is the 7 technique, there's the 9 technique, the stuff's all alignment. Essentially the numbers go wider out, the wider the defensive lineman's alignment goes on the line of scrimmage, right? And it basically stops at 9. You get a wide 9, and that's supposed to be about as wide as, in the old NFL days, that was as wide as you would send an edge. And that is one basically step outside of the shoulder of the left tackle is where you would have a wide 9. So if you're on the shoulder, that's an alignment. And then if I'm just figure another whole extra step outside of that guy's shoulder, this would be a typical 3-4 alignment in the old school defenses of the outside linebackers. Well, look at how far Derick Hall is out. This is what I've called the wide 10. And I call it the wide 10 because you're doing an even almost extra 2 yards to the left there. I mean, he's just about out of the screen here. And what that then allows is the same inverse of the thing that I just talked about a second ago with that tight end coming back across the formation and getting crumbled. And that is that what you're giving your edges is build-up speed. So pass rushing back in the day used to be more about, especially 4-3 defenses, you get your defensive end with his hand in the dirt. He's going to be in that tighter alignment maybe even a 7 technique, just right there on that outside shoulder of that tackle. And that's where his alignment would set up. And what that leads to, quick contact after the snap, quick engagement after the snap. Now, was a good thing back in the day, and that worked really well and still works now. There's still defenses that still run this. It does require, of course, the defender who, of course, is good with his hands, karate moves, that type of thing, can hopefully dip and bend, can hopefully be quick to then bounce around that guy and take advantage of hopefully a slow-footed tackle. But another way to go about it is to push them out into this extra wide alignment. And now you're giving Derick Hall 1, 2, 3 steps of build-up speed with a guy who naturally has power. So I'm already strong. I'm already, built for diff. And now I'm going to get to walk into the backfield in addition to it. So watching this play is in a game that he got 2 sacks in that Super Bowl, how he puts him completely on skates. And if you look at this, Campbell's kind of false starting a bit. Like it's right on the line on the snap. I'm not saying it's these tackles, man. They're right on the line. But you can see what that does to the tackle then, who has short arms, who now has this guy coming at him 100 miles an hour, about to throw a hand out as he's running full speed at him, throw 2 hands out at him. And now what do? You can be the best rooter in the world. You can have roots growing out the bottom of your feet and you're getting walked backwards. And it especially then becomes vicious when you have the tackle who has the shorter arms. At least maybe the longer guy can get contact first and maybe he can kind of slow down some of that momentum as it gets into him. But a guy like Campbell here, as we see coming off that left side, he's done. He's got no answer to that. And it's one of the reasons why a really good chance eventually Campbell's going to have to move inside, because he's arriving in the NFL at a bad time to have short arms from the tackle position, because more of the schemes are getting moved to more of this wider alignment. More of it's being based upon power from the edges more than the snatch the edge. Like Campbell would have been a good old school type of tackle with his movement and his feet and his ability to clean the edge up and to not allow you to snatch it that way. But it's just kind of not the same necessarily situation in this day and age, having to operate from this fashion. So pure fit here. You, of course, had another one as well in that game. Let's show the other one here. He coming off the other side on this one. So running a little bit of loop game. Of course, part of what made the Seahawks so devastating is the games they could run up front. And here again, you've got him aligned so far wide to the right that he's off screen from the all-22 shot. That's how you know it's wide. That's how you know the NFL, like the cameraman haven't even caught up to this alignment. That's how still kind of new it is. But you can see here, coming off the edge, work some inside-outside stuff. It's more of kind of just a loop with Williams here. Williams gets up the field, and then he just clears right back through, anticipating the step up of Drake May. It's a real subtle game here, by the way. I mean, that's just, these are two guys working together in tandem. And part of the other benefit you get now with this is guys that have worked together for years now. These guys have been together for 3 years, and they're running these games that if you're trying to bring just 2 random defensive tackles together in an offseason and be like, okay, we're going to run these kind of games where this isn't just a stunt. So you have your stunts where right off the rip, you're going to go, both players know that they're going lateral. Both players know that they're shooting to the side laterally. And so it's going to have that just flow where I'm going where I'm going, you're going where you're going. This is a feel thing. This is a Williams getting upfield, taking it from a straight line to flush Drake. And then Hall has to be subtle in his loop. He can't pull the loop too quick or he's going to run into the back of Leonard Williams. So he's got to make sure that he's got Leonard cleared through before he brings the loop through. But he's kind of, if you can watch it here, sort of waiting on that loop and then coming back around. And I want to show these 2 plays, especially because of the fact that it gives you kind of representation of both of the things he can do. He is pretty good laterally moving inside. One of the things that you would see occasionally in Auburn would be a little bit of the inside, cross face step, where he just goes outside, sets you up with the long arm, and then bang, he's coming back inside. He might even hit you in the chest and then come back inside with a jab step inside. But he can move really well laterally on these stunts and loops games. It's very important because we run that as much as any team in the league, because we have the front 4 that can generate the pressure. But again, to run this type of stuff, it's kind of the equivalent to a quarterback and a receiver that are having to work off of a lot of option routes. and they have to be on completely the same page every single play about what they're seeing off the leverage of the defender so that they both make the same read. Because you make the wrong read, it's an interception off an option route. I went left off the leverage. I threw it right. The defender's sitting right. Why are you throwing it there? So this is the same thing with these kind of little loops here as he kind of does here. And goes and gets his second sack of the game. I think he gets a fumble there, if I'm not mistaken. Byron Murphy was able to jump on top of it as well. And good to see from Byron. Nice play. But Derick Hall is coming into his own in a really nice way. I think the other part of this that I'd like to just discuss as well is just the upside still remains to be seen here. He came here as a guy that was going to be a guy that needed to develop a little bit as far as the pass rush goes, and his understanding and having ability, I think, to work together with some of these, really great defensive linemen like we have is going to be a helping hand. But there is even reason to believe that this isn't necessarily a finished product as it stands with him. He is still just 25 years old, even though he's been in the league for 3 years. As you can see here with the PFF grades on here, I think that these do a good job. As I always say, this is to be married with the tape. So we're not going to take this as just the sole stuff, but this does fit in alignment with what I've seen from him on the tape. Because in 23 and 24, for instance, I found myself having some issues in looking at him at times and how he was defending the run. For a big, strong guy, wasn't always consistently setting the hard edge. He was really not showing a good awareness at times of ball carriers coming around him when he was setting that edge. So he's so engaged with the block, so engaged with kind of what he was doing there that he just kind of got blinders on like a horse. And then those running backs would run right by beside him. And if he just got an arm out, he could kind of hook them. And so that was a problem the first couple of years. Missed tackle rate was a little bit higher, still kind of an issue. But some of the missed tackle rates, effort stuff, because a lot of what this guy gives you is high motor play too. And those high motor guys are the guys that are running around, throwing their body around, jumping over a guy to try to tackle a running back where he doesn't have really a good chance of doing it, but maybe he's just hoping he can slow the guy up to help let a defender come and help out and clean up the tackle. But you can see the run defense did come forward. The edge setting has gotten so much better, which makes sense. It should. He's so strong. He's got length to him. He should be able to be really dominant in that way in his game. And then the pass rush also slowly coming forward all 3 years, going from 57.4, 67.6 to 71.8 last year. And you can see that, doesn't necessarily have the sack numbers from last year, and PFF counts their sack numbers a little different than other people do on this a little bit. Though they're including on this as well the regular and postseason, so you're including those Patriot sacks. If you're wondering why, why didn't I thought I only had the two? Didn't he have this? It's like, no, you're right on that. But what you do see is that the pressure rate went up. So even with the extra playoff snaps, because of the oblique injury, his snap count last year actually went down to 512 from 673, but his total pressures was 51. And so if I'm not mistaken, like the Nick Herbig contract, 51 pressures, 35 hurries, both of those numbers were improvement off of last year, and he did it more efficiently, which is the interesting part to that. I think Nick Herbig, if I'm not mistaken, as well had like 55 pressures last year. 48, sorry. So Nick Herbig actually had less pressures last year than Derick Hall, as we kind of go back and look at the comparison on this. Derick with 35 hurries to the 27 hurries of Herbig, and then the pressures 48 for Herbig and 51 for Hall. So, one guy got significantly less on this deal. Reasons at play for this, but we have an improving player, a guy that's a perfect fit to the scheme, a guy that's got the chemistry within this team that is a great fit. And then you have, I think, a little bit of reason to believe that there's room for this to get even better, that this is not set in who he is as a player. There's no more room that, he's hit the ceiling and there's nothing left to be had here. There is still something left to possibly be had here, especially in this scheme. And he starts to understand it more and more and kind of what you can and can't get away with. Because it is a little different in what you have to do in rushing the passer when you're lined out that wide. If you're used to being a little bit in tighter, I do feel like there is a little bit of an art to how you have to do this now. You're given certain advantages in the build-up speed collision thing that goes on there. But then there's also that fact that maybe you're not as able to do, if you're a guy that maybe works really well off a quick contact and that you've done good with that in the past, that now you have to kind of anticipate that, I can't lean on that as much because it's more about getting to that explosive point on contact and then where my leverage is at on that. And then how I can counter on that if the tackle does have me kind of caught on my the first way I attack from that manner, I guess. But really love this deal. I think you should celebrate it too as a Seahawks fan. It's really hard to see the downside on this deal. 4-year, $44 million, half the cost of a Mafe. If he goes out and he replicates even what he did this past year, 51 total pressures and throws another 35 hurries up there, that's, 70.5 grade. I think he's the 44th highest rated edge in the sport. As much as I know that some people are like, that shouldn't be paid. He would have made probably about $22 million a year. He would have made the Mafe contract plus inflation rates. So getting him at $11 million per year on a 4-year extension is a hell of a savings. And this is a very good player. And as we come back to it time and time again, this team is not just about the star power and that drives it. It is about the cumulative sum of the total of the parts, both the starters and to the depth. Not just to the 1 or the 2 edges, but look at all 4 of their edges. Hell, maybe end up looking at all 5 of our edges. Look at how fresh we can keep guys. There's a method to this. And it's a purposeful approach to that, in my opinion, and what Seattle's tactically looking to do on this. And that's why they weren't as much in on the Crosby trade. I want to say as well, in regards to the Crosby trade, is kind of a note that comes off the back of this trade. I was seeing some Ram fans, and I'm sure I'm going to have some fun discussion tonight on the round table with Jake in regards to value and understanding players' value and Byron Murphy. And there's been a lot of kerfuffle online and out there in the X world about how Byron Murphy should have been included in the deal. Because that's what everybody will say is they say, we should have done this Garrett deal. And then the people on the other side of it counter and say, okay, well, you want to give up Byron Murphy? Yeah, we got to give up. Well, and some Hawk fans go, no, I don't want to give up Murphy. And then some say, well, yeah, you got to give up Byron Murphy for Myles Garrett. I'm going to speak more to Rams fans on this than Seahawks fans because I'm hoping Seahawks fans understand what Murphy brings to the table here. And another guy I think got a couple sacks in the Super Bowl. Byron Murphy in many ways makes this defense go. And what Seattle did last year is 2 different things defensively. Number 1, they were the best team in the NFL at stopping the run. Number 2, they lived in nickel as much as any team in the NFL. Those 2 things should not go together. If I'm living with a light box, you should be able to see me susceptible to running on me. To give you a comparison, the Rams come in and play us week 15 or whatever it was, the second game. Watching that game, it really stood out to me, and it really stood out to me moving forward from that even into the playoff game. Seahawks come out in 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, 13 personnel, 3 tight ends. Seahawks coming out in I formation. The Rams almost every single time counter with a 3-4 defense, a base defense, a heavier front. The Seahawks, meanwhile, defensively to the flip side of the ball in that very same game, watch the Rams come out in 12 personnel, watch the Rams come out in 13 personnel, and they stand tall in their nickel defense. They stand tall with their 4-man fronts. Widen the hell out. Because when I widen that Derick Hall out to the wide 10, my defensive tackle is now literally on a would-be island with the Puget Sound all around him. So when you understand what Byron Murphy does in this defense and being, I would say arguably, and maybe even surpassing Dexter Lawrence here, arguably speaking, as being the best nose tackle in the sport, because he allows the whole rest, he allows you to live in nickel. He allows you to be dominant against the run in nickel, which then allows you to also be dominant against the pass. Because if I go to 12 and 13 personnel and you go to base, that means then I'm getting linebackers and safeties I can target in coverage with a mismatch. When you stay in nickel, now I don't have that anymore. Now you have the advantage defensively because you're going to have a cornerback on that mismatch I had hoped to drive. Instead of a linebacker, it becomes a cornerback. So hence, I need to go back and run the ball. But I can't run the ball because I can't move this damn 300-pound 3-tech that you have operating in a 1-tech positioning, snap after snap, taking on the double teams, and he's just not being moved. He's just refusing to be moved. And meanwhile, he's utterly dynamic as a pass rusher. He can run all these stunts and loop games. And then when you want to line him in the 3-tech, when Jaron Reed needs a little bit of a blow, when Leonard Williams needs a blow, and then you finally get him over into the 3-tech, he's even more dominant. Byron Murphy went, and part of this argument comes down to Jared Verse, and I've heard Ram fans say, Jared Verse is a better player than Byron Murphy. No, he isn't. No, he isn't. There's a reason why Byron Murphy was drafted ahead of Jared Verse. We had a needed edge. Verse was on our table. Verse was a guy that we were interested in. There's a reason we didn't go with him. We didn't have a need for defensive tackle. You had Jaron Reed and Leonard Williams on the spot too. So it wasn't a pick of need. So for all those there's a lot of Ram fans. All people thinking about Byron Murphy, and it's very important on this point. I'm not doing it because I could care less about Ram fans' thoughts. It's more to present to you guys another example of something that I've been trying to sell you guys on for a while. They don't get us. They don't understand the Seahawks. They look at a Byron Murphy and their stat tracking, and that's all they understand with it. And they don't understand how everything is made to work and go and what makes it then so dynamic. Few defenses in the league can afford to live, if any, in nickel to the rate the Seahawks can. And you don't get that done unless you have a man that can absolutely destroy double teams up front. And that is a hard life. That is hard to do. Your best case scenario is, for most guys, let me just give ground slowly. Say nothing of being immovable. Byron Murphy is that important. You got him under 3 years of club control. He is just coming into his own. And yes, folks, when he eventually transitions over to the 3-tech role, he will be an even better player. He'll put up all those sparkling stats that'll finally get all those Rams fans to recognize how good he is. They can't do it right now because all they can do is look at a stat column. But he is that good. He is the real deal. And yes, if I took 32 NFL general managers and I took a poll out of there about which one they would prefer and take over, there'd be a lot of them taking Byron Murphy. Not saying all, but there'd be a lot of them, and maybe the majority. Jared Verse is a hell of a player. But you're also set up from the edge to pile up those stats. I'm not exactly set up from the 1-tech positioning to pile up stats. Show me a 1-tech in the history of football that's piled up stats from that position. I'll wait. But it's not, again, not care less if they, in fact, I hope they keep overlooking it. I hope they keep not understanding it. I hope that the Rams front office makes the same mistake in how they look at the Seahawks team as it comes back to that luck and fluke and all that other stuff, because we'll be able to continue to sustain that this much longer as they don't learn it, as they don't try to solve it truly. But Murphy is that important. The one little note I wanted to mention off this, coming off this trade from yesterday, is that don't get it twisted. This guy's been a phenomenal player, and he's going to continue to rise. And what he has done has been incredible, to be at his size and hold up, and not just hold up against double teams, but to dominate against double teams and then let the rest of the whole defensive line flow and go from there. You got to go into base. Now they can isolate those mismatches. Now all these teams that are chasing after all these H-back, unicorn, tight ends, they go to work on your ass. Got a corner out there instead? You can't. Rams just drafted 2 tight ends in the second round in back-to-back years. You don't think they're trying to chase this ball? You've got the counter. It's inherently built within. And they still haven't solved it. Appreciate you guys watching today. If you can for me, please do. Please, please, please do hit that like button. I would really, really appreciate it. As well, I'd like to, if I can, thank the sponsor of the show, which of course is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 sports app. They are the best. They've got so many picks, so many options that you can go through. Of course, you've got a lot going in flow right now. We got basketball playoffs here with the finals about to kick off. Baseball, Mariners in first place, riding high. Get in on that there. You got a couple bats starting to heat up there that you could take advantage of with some of the overs or unders, or perhaps get into a little bit of a daily, maybe even weekly fantasy on that side of it. That's always a lot of fun. You've also got the seasonal picks with football there on deck right now. So a couple of the seasonal picks I've gotten through. Jadarian Price over 749 yards rushing for the year. I took the over on that. I'm also very bullish on Jackson Smith and Jigba at over 1,324 yards, and over on the Jacoby Myers at 749 receiving yards, as I think he'll be the #1 target out there for Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. So Take advantage of my picks today. Take advantage of the code HMA. And when you put a $5 lineup down, they'll put $50 into your account. $5, $4.50. That ain't too bad when you use that code HMA. Please take advantage of Prize Picks today. Put that sports knowledge to the test. Terms and conditions do apply. Please do see their site for details. And yes, I do know that in the state of Washington, there are some restrictions still in the state. But if you are in a casino in the state of Washington, you can use the app in full in that manner. Please do always remember, gamble responsibly. Thank you guys for watching today. If you can for me, please do hit that like button as it does help the channel out. Really appreciate everybody yesterday too as well. We had a really great turnout for the show and tons of support on the channel yesterday, including from Ram fans. Really, really much appreciated, and a lot of great discussion yesterday. I had a lot of fun on that one. Sean McLeodart, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, B, don't let Jake ignore everything pre-2017 tonight. No, I won't. I responded to him on the X on the deal with like, okay, we're going to match up general managers now. We're doing the which general manager is better now thing. Okay. And so I can present that. He's going to try to glom onto the 2017, which is, kind of fine, but it's a disingenuous argument from that standpoint when there's a track record that goes beyond the 2017 realm of things. So, I imagine me and Jake are going to be locking horns on a variety of different topics tonight. I do see that probably being the case. I'm anticipating it. And Jake's going to be feeling himself after this trade, especially as now we're starting to get a little bit more closer to confirmation that Aaron Donald would seemingly be on deck in this situation next. I know some of you are poo-pooing that or lack of worried by that prospect. Maybe it's just my PTS Darnold kicking in. But I'm not digging that news. I'm not liking it. But it's gonna be a fun night tonight, Sean. I'm getting the bandana ready. You know what I mean? My Rambo bandana. 12 for life. Thank you for the $2 donation. Heward said it's a 70 strong deal. Let's have it go. Go Hawks. I think we got somebody out there blowing a leaf blower, by the way, so sorry about that. And Brock gets it. Smart football mind, local legend in a lot of ways for both what he was as a player here, Seahawk, broadcaster, love Brock. And he's on it, man. He sees things clearly with these situations. And it's not just a phrase. That's the thing, is it can seem like just a pithy phrase that we say, 70 strong. Oh, it looks good on a t-shirt. And it's no. It's that we're conceptually going to operate different from other NFL franchises where there's an inherent draw to, it's about the starters, man. It's about the offense, man. It's about the defense, man. That's all it's about, bro. Just get your starters, man. How strong can you make the starters? That's what it's about, man. Like, what if it's about how strong I can make the team? What if I took that approach conceptually as an organization? That's what they're trying to do. And it's represented in these moves. And it's also representative that if you don't make the back-breaking big signing deals that are just going to crush your salary cap, if you're not paying your quarterback top 3 money, that's what also lends itself to being able to execute this kind of strategy. Because now you have the money to build it that way. Now, instead of having to get the guy in the vet minimum from roster spot 40 on to 53 because I've spent all my money on the front side guys, I've got a way of dispersing that a little bit more evenly through. Let's go, man. It's a great deal. Great deal. Thomas Cox, thank you for the $5 donation. I'm tired of Ram fans BS like they won the Super Bowl in June. I told Jake, start your talk in June. Yeah, it's gotten a little insufferable this offseason from Ram fans in the sense of like, look, I think it's great what their organization is doing, and I think they should be hyped by their ball club. And I think the Ram fans have every reason to believe that they should be the front runners next year, as Super Bowl, not contenders, but front running contenders. But at the same point in time, this has also come in conjunction with the seemingly, and we're going to kind of swipe and sort of try to, pick at and sort of like delegitimize your Super Bowl win and try to like excuse it away and cope it away and call it a fluke or call it luck. And it's been kind of like, it's bad form in my opinion. You take your L last year, Rams, take your L. We took plenty of L's through the last few years with you guys. Plenty. And not all of them felt fair, by the way. as they like to talk about fair and justice and what's the, this is so unfair. It's like, I've taken a lot of losses off your Rams' back that wasn't particularly fair through the years. I don't remember spending a whole offseason bitching and moaning about it. I don't remember calling for the NFL to create a new rule and establishment of my bitching and moaning. It has gotten a little bit lame. And I ain't expecting Ram fans to throw flowers at our feet and christen us a new dynasty. I ain't. But at the same point in time, nobody wins a Super Bowl champion by luck. This is the first time I've ever heard about this as a concept in my life. You have to go through a 17-game season. You got to get your body battered and beaten. 2 Thursday night games, playing in the toughest division in football, having to win your division twice over in the playoffs. There is no such thing in that sort of reality of luck or fluke. He who hath cometh out of that gauntlet is the one who is champion. And it should be the most straightforward, easy concept for them to wrap their head around. But the cope just keeps kicking in, doesn't it? Like the cocaine mouse in the cage. Beep, 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 beep. But you know what happens to that mouse eventually, Thomas? You know what occurs to that mouse as he just keeps hitting that beep button for that more cocaino?
Fatality.
We'll just have to see if they go the way of the dodo in the same way on this with all their excuses. I'll tell you this, they're not solving us. They're not doing the math they should be. But I've been with you on this. It's gotten a little bit like, come on, man. I am going to be in full eye roll mode tonight. I know I will be. Thomas says, sorry, not in June, but October. Yeah, there we go. Paper champions, man. We were talking about this yesterday. How often do paper champions really become then the champions? No, very, 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 very infrequently. Well, okay. So yeah, cool. Yeah, feel good about yourself in June. Like this, it's gonna be a whole different reality once we get into end season and once we're late into the season, and especially if you maybe down a bar, like we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Thank you though, Thomas. Appreciate your support. Feed me. Thank you for the $5 donation. You hear what Jake's been saying about Byron Murphy. He says Jared Verse is on a different planet as Byron Murphy. He's definitely feeling himself. Jake's definitely feeling himself. I don't blame him in certain respects, but this is where this whole feeling yourself, feel good about your team, but it doesn't have to come at the cost of you trying to chop down something on somebody else's team that's then inaccurate. And the thing with the Byron Murphy deal, and I'm gonna push pretty hard back on this tonight, as I know it's going to come up, is that there is looking at stats and sitting there and looking at a stat column, and then there's looking at film. And there's room to do both, but if you're just looking at stats and you're not really looking at film, then you're not getting all of the story. And kind of like I broke down here just a few minutes ago, and that's why I know you put your dono before I actually just responded to that just a few minutes ago, but that's why I wanted to address that today, because it is being presented out there. And I want Seahawks fans to remember with this with Byron Murphy of don't get it twisted on this. You did not want to move Byron Murphy in the Browns trade. That was not a move you would have wanted to make. This is one of your foundational pieces. He is growing. He is even getting better, and he is already dominant, playing out of position. You don't move that kind of piece. But you also don't just look at stats and go, well, this defensive tackle doesn't have the pressures of this edge, so he's not on the same planet. We'll come back to it. I've said time and time again, feed me. If your outlook on something is just down to some simplified outlook as far as stat tracking, and you're trying to measure between two positions that do two different things in a defense, you're seeing it wrong. You're not getting the whole story. And they're not here. But I hope that our fellow Seahawks fans aren't making that same mistake when it comes to this Byron situation. I've seen a little bit online on some people like ruminating a little bit on the lack of including Murphy. Murphy is that good. Let me just remind you, Murphy didn't go in the second, third, fourth round. Murphy went in the first, and he was the second defensive player taken off the board in that draft for a reason. He is a guy that they believed was the best defensive player in that entire draft. They're on record as saying that, and it's going to prove to be true of Byron now and into the future. So but again, it's a good thing too, man. It's a little bit like, as I like to use the phrase, the canary in the coal mine. It's a canary in the coal mine of the lack of Rams really paying attention to what made us or what makes us as good as we are, especially when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. Mick Frewer says the Rams tried to trade up for Murphy during the draft. It's a part that's going to make this a little bit empty from his standpoint of things, to your point. And it's a great point at that, Mick. Thank you for the donation, which is that he's going to sit here and try to derive down and tear down Murphy and say Murphy's lesser than Jared Verse. But you know who disagreed with you, Jake? Your own effing team. Because Murphy was the guy they were trying to jump ahead of the Seattle Seahawks to get. Murphy was the guy that Sean McVay was scared to the depths of his heart that the Seattle Seahawks were going to get. How do you know? Because there's literally a camera on them talking about it. You can literally go up on YouTube and go, what? Look, there's a video right now. You can go look of them talking about this very thing. They're not trading up for Jared Verse there. They settled for Jared Verse because they couldn't trade up. Because he couldn't talk Les Snead into moving up. McVay wanted it. Snead didn't want to do it. So general manager wins out there. But it's a great point, Mick. And it sort of kind of kicks out the legs of Jake's own argument. Your own people disagree with you. Thomas, thank you for the $2 donation. Did you see Jake picking Seattle record from 2017? Yeah, he's trying to do this thing of I'm going to start counting Les Snead once we got Fisher out of the building, and then we got McVay in here, and I'll just count his stats from that point forward. And then I'm going to measure that against you guys coming at the end of the Legion of Boom era as players are getting older. It's like, yeah, you measure us up against a time when our Super Bowl window was closed, was almost shut and closing. Yeah, you did better than us as you had a younger roster on the rise. That's cool. But that's where it's like you're cherry picking the timeline. You want to jump in there to make the thing represent what you want to represent. So I went back and grabbed, of course, I did this, Thomas, a couple weeks ago, which is, I'm glad I did this. It was good timing, but I went back and, looked at the record of John Schneider and Les Snead through their time since just take 2012 when Snead comes in there and becomes GM. Let's just take it from start to where he comes in and take John from there. And John's got to be pretty handily winning percentage, Super Bowl appearances. I think that he's got maybe conference championship, I guess. But yeah, it's pretty funny. And just going to be one of the things tonight that I'm anticipating is going to be it's going to be a little bit of a, let's go. Here we go. Yeah, thank you for the $2 donation. Rams fans are saying Cope and Fluke in the same hour, laughing out loud. Yeah, it's what is it? Which is it? It's so wild to me. And I guess this is where I try to say I am consistent on this because look, the Rams went and won a Super Bowl in a very tight Super Bowl that the Bengals were up in, and they were on their final drive and they had a last play that was incomplete and their chances were going to run out and they were going to lose a Super Bowl with Stafford. And then here comes the magic man referee in with a penalty flag. And I think that's gives them a fluke luck play to help them win the Super Bowl. I think the referees won them a Super Bowl there. But I'm not really going to sit there and lead with that constantly as my outlook of the Rams in the future for that season and what they did. I will give them credit for winning the Super Bowl. But that's not kind of the way that this is working with the shoe on the other foot, is it, Daniel? And that's where it's like, for me, it's like, this is rich, you guys making excuses, number one. But number two, again, let them keep thinking it because they'll keep not understanding why we were great last year. Not good. Why we set a franchise record for 14 wins. Why we waylaid the Patriots in the Super Bowl. That we were great last year. And it has a lot to do with a lot of different reasons, not just one or two things that we kind of did or a ball bounced this way in a game. Dogzilla, thank you for the $2 donation. It says, does Jake resemble a Coke mouse? Oh, that's me. I mean, a little bit for this metaphor. In this metaphorical situation, he is the Coke mouse in the cage. But just for this metaphor. Appreciate you, Dogzilla. And Thomas Cox, thank you for the $2 donation. Murphy is Warren Sapp. I take him over Myles Garrett. Well, you touch on a good point, and that's that upside I talk about when he moves to 3-tech. And folks, he will move to 3-tech eventually. He'll get over there. There's time. I mean, right now, remember with this, right now, last year, there's an argument to be made last year that you had 2 of the top 3 best defensive tackles in the sport, and Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy. There's a real legitimate, Murphy generated 62 pressures last year from mainly a nose tackle position. 62 pressures. Wild. Those are amazing numbers for a defensive lineman. But your point stands in that this guy could potentially end up turning into a Warren Sapp-like player from you through the 3-tech position when he goes over there. And if you put it in that way of this guy becoming a Warren Sapp eventually into that spot, do I want to move that guy from Myles Garrett? Not just him, by the way. We have to also kick in draft capital on top of it. So it ain't just Murphy. It's also the draft capital you got to put on top of the stack there too. A first rounder, another second, third. But don't underrate what's going to happen when you move him off the double teams. And defensive tackles operate in 2 positions in football, and it still works this way, and it's worked this way for years. You have the 3-tech, which is on the outside shoulder of the guard on the weak side of the formation. So he's by alignment. He's not stacked between 2 guys' shoulders. He's on the outside shoulder here to where now he's got more freedom of movement. Harder to double team him. One of the reasons that we struggled for years to double team Aaron Donald. Pure 3-tech. 3-tech's tougher to double because the tendency of offense is to play the strong side of the formation. Strong side of the formation is going to then have the defensive tackle in a 1-tech position more often than not. I mean, there's some little alterations here. Sometimes it's a 0-tech right over the center. Sometimes it's right heads up over the top of the other guard, but it tends to be between those 2 with their shoulders. So in your alignment, you're just set up there for those 2 guys to sandwich you every play. Sandwich, 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 sandwich. Cabana. Meatball, sub. Like it's every play. It's harder to do work within that environment, but it's a fundamentally important piece to the defense because that is the front lines. That is the point of attack. That is where teams are going to first tend to probe and go after. So that when he eventually does get moved out of there, and the only reason you haven't is because you have a guy playing at an almost equivalent point over there. Like Leonard Williams can't do the nose tackle stuff that Byron Murphy can. He can occasionally get in there, but he needs to be out there more 3-tech, sometimes edge. I don't think he would operate as well operating as into what Murphy does on that inside. So it's kind of like, he can do all the stuff Leonard can do, but Leonard can't necessarily do all the stuff that Byron Murphy can do. Good points there, Thomas. I agree with you there, man. It's a good way of putting it on that. Kyle from South Park, thank you for the $5 donation. Rams didn't win the Super Bowl and yet have a ton more pressure to win this year than the Super Bowl champions. Great job, media. Y'all are going to look stupid again. Yeah, I think the pressure fact is something that's going to come into this. And at least it's got to, I think it came into it last year. I think it was, you felt the pressure of them after they lost that game against us in the second game. And that it was part of what took them a little bit of time to get the bounce back in their step, if they ever really got it back in their step through the rest of the year. And that's what's going to happen now. And that the time winds down. It's all at stake. It's all on the table and needing to happen now. You better make a go. And if you fall short, if you trip up, if you start slow, that stuff only starts to mount. Only starts to mount. And the media is not going to, like they were already falling over themselves before this move, right, Kyle? This thing's just going to have them drooling. The Rams are the best. Are they the best team ever? The best team ever? Are they the all-time best team or the all-time best sports team? It's going to get bad, Kyle. It's going to get very, it's going to get, it might be a media turn-off time for me the rest of the offseason. Feed me. Thank you for the $2 donation. It says, don't forget you have to deal with Rams fan Jesse. Jesse's going to be very pro this move, that's for sure. And look, I'm going to be pro this move too. It's just as much as like, be happy about your move, be satisfied with it, but your move has nothing to do with my team. Yeah. But yeah, Jesse's definitely got a little bit of he was already a little bit in the defeatist point of like, hey, my team's not doing it this year. And now it's especially like, yeah, this is really, really not going to be the year now. And I think from a 49er perspective on this, you look at it and you go, we got to play this team early on. We got to play them out the gate fresh. Seattle's going to get them down the line where it's maybe they're not quite as strong as they start out with that, but they get the full meal deal right from game one. But then so hopefully are the 49ers, Greenlaw, Warner, Bosa, maybe they're able to be, full go at that point too. But yeah, Jesse's also going to be, I'm sure, singing the Rams praises. Mick, thank you for another $5 donation, Mick. I appreciate all of you guys' support today. You're very kind, very kind. This reminds me of the big three team the Nets had in 2021. Everyone said they would win with the star power, but it takes a whole team to win. Yeah, what do we have? We had Jason Kidd, and we had, oh my gosh, I should be knowing this. I know both of the two players, and I'm spacing them out. Back in the day. It was, it was the Brooklyn. You're thinking the Brooklyn one. I was 21. I was going back to an older Brooklyn team. I was showing my age there. I was like, no, it was the Kid. And then it was but yeah, they tried to do the Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden thing. And, sports is chemistry and things developing. And it's not a Madden game where you can just grab these different parts, never play together, and slap them together and be like, all right, work in uniformity. Work in cohesion. It doesn't tend to always go that way. And the paper champions, like I said earlier, just, don't, I think we were talking about it yesterday. It's the champions in the NFL that they're put down as far as, prognosticated by like a Vegas at 13% or something. Super Bowl favorites actually get in there. So there's no guarantees on this type of stuff. And as you said with basketball, and there's a lot of examples of teams trying to put through those kind of, I was saying even the Nets on a previous generation had kind of done this as well, or tried to do this as well, and it didn't quite work. So hard to just sort of assemble stuff. Better to develop, draft, get from internally within, that's the more of the ideal here with guys who know what the Rams are doing here is, McDuffie from over here, and we're going to grab Devontae Adams, get him in here, and then we'll bring Myles Garrett over here. And it's becoming a little bit more of like, we'll assemble. Okay, we'll get our middle linebacker from here. And every team's going to do a little bit of supplemental stuff with this, but it feels like they're going to be leaning on this a little bit heavily now into the future on that. We'll see. But good points, man. Nets have done it twice. Who was it? It was Jason Kidd, Richard Jefferson, and Vince Carter. That's what I was thinking, Mick. So they've actually done it. That was back when they were New Jersey. I also just showed off, Mick, how old I am, though. Oh, no. Oh, no, Brandon. Oh, my gosh. Dogzilla, thank you for the $2 donation. What the hell color is that lipstick Jesse wears? Jesse's not wearing no lipstick. I'll ask him tonight. It's that Florida weather down there, man, Dogzilla. It gets dry, you need that chapstick. And when chapstick's just freshly applied, it looks a little lipstick-like. One of the reasons I don't wear chapstick. Real men don't wear chapstick. You let your lips crack like a man. Be a man. Let your lips crack. Guess that takes talk with that guy. Be a man. Don't use lip. Oh, God. Thank you, Doxel. It's pretty good. I love it. I'll ask Jesse. Parm Day 49er. Thomas Brando, I believe Imanwari will also take a step, and based off of a lot of Seattle media, he'll probably one of the best players of the team, or Myles Garrett. Very true. Yep. I think you're hearing about a lot of, even NFL players talking about Hawks defense and facing them, and a lot of them are talking about, your eyes first go to Imanwari. He's a problem. You got to know where that guy's at. And, you saw the training camp experience last year where he was as dominant of a player in training camp of any player on that field, not just from the days I was there, but by all reports outside the days I was there. And that's where you can see how this is, after the year put together, how this could really come forward in that way. Like you say, Thomas, it's very feasible. Yeah, the San Antonio Spurs about to have a Seahawks type of title run. Last time Spurs won, Seahawks won the Super Bowl, and Matt Hasselbeck's Pro Bowl years been Spurs chips. Proud fan of both clubs. Let's go. Yeah, Spurs look like they're going to get it done. Glad it's not Oklahoma City. Say that. Not only you got the hate for them stealing our Sonics, but they also play a brand of basketball that makes you gag. Grandizer, the Hawks Nest. Brando, with the Hall signing, is there a possible top or mid-tier player that the Hawks cap will allow, that the Hawks should trade for? Top 3 list of yours. Say it. Go Hawks. Admittedly, in the research I've done, not really a guy there right now. Just by the standing of things, in my opinion. The availability from teams, the teams that could, let me give you, for instance, Grandizer. I think this is a great representation of what we're dealing with. You can't find any players. Then if you can find a player that might be in that charted realm, like a TJ Watt, you then go to because of TJ, you go, okay, well, TJ, they got Highsmith and they're just signing Nick Airbig now, and maybe they want to get out from under the Watt deal now. Maybe they're open to doing that. But then you go to the Watt deal and there's $30 million of bonus money still left in the books, and they only have about $5 million of cap space. And so they couldn't really move that deal. They couldn't get him out from under then at that point, even if they wanted to, if they had the intention. And it does kind of work that way with the guys that I have found that I've been able to kind of target in on, where the team either still thinks it's a contender and isn't going to want to move him, or even if they were to want to move him, they don't have the ability cap space wise to then move him. And then this is going to require Grandizer, in my opinion, a little bit more of a waiting game, where you got to just go to the trade deadline and let things kind of sort themselves out a little bit, let a couple of those contenders fall away. And now more players will be available. And now we got more feasible options that are out there. But right now, I just don't think that there's any real, major options out there to be had. But you've got the money, you got the cap space to get it done when it presents itself. That's the important part. Abdi, Jake's Rams fan, cherry picking their best years, starting with 2017, but not including all of Jeff Fisher's days. That's shameless by Jake. Well, we all knew that, and I love Jake, and Jake does great work, and it's a fun rivalry. But in the best of times, he gets accused of pretty good homerism. And after a deal like this, Abdi, where he's gotten Myles Garrett, it's like you can see it's like the electrocution of homerism. He's getting souped up, It's like, I'm growing, It's like, and Aaron Donald's coming. So it's going to go into overdrive, man. All we can do is put on the sunglasses and hope to not look directly at it. But yeah, I thought it was pretty funny as well. Right. Trap Cat, make the team stronger, not just the starters. Grandizer Hawks says, I am thinking maybe a player like the Finn Zach Seiler, defensive end. If he fits the Hawks scheme, he's maybe 29 years old, so maybe a low third to high fourth for him. His contract's not bad. I like Zach Seiler. Yeah, he's a good player. He's a real good player. They do like him a lot there. I think it could be an interesting move. They're sitting on $20 million of cap space. Seiler, though, with his contract, let's take a look at that. So Seiler's got a $6 million bonus, 26, 4, 4, 3. So he has about a $17 million, even more than that. He's got about $18 million in bonus money that has to come off the books for him to be moved. That's going to make it tough. And the part that'll make that especially tough, I'll add this here to the side Grandizer so you can see. So the hard part about this that makes this go is this year right here, the year you'd have to move him right here. And it's that far left number of 1.3. So the 1.3 is all you save. Meanwhile, you've got to take on this bonus, this bonus and this bonus. Or if you want to do the quick math, he added $25.6 million in bonus when he signed. Only $6 million has come off the books of that. And the base problem with this, when you inherently really break it down, Grandizer, is that he just signed the contract and they didn't put the money down the line. He got a lot of money up front. So he's probably a minimum of about a year out for them to be able to put him into a movable state. But it's a great idea. Love the player. Just it's too much money. They have the cap space, but that would essentially blow out all of the remaining portion of their cap space just to eat the bonus money to move him in a deal. Corey, the fact that the Rams needed to get Myles Garrett debunks that we won the Super Bowl by a fluke. If the Rams are so much better, they would have made not one, not two, not three splash trades. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that this is a little bit of what you get from this is that you're not, I don't know if the Rams organization is as much in lockstep as some of their fans are and what they're trying to present. And that, like you say, the moves that they make are belying a little bit of this attitude. And I think that they recognize how good this machine is that the Seahawks are putting together. And they recognize the fact that this machine is just getting warmed up. It's not full throttle. It's, as I said yesterday, the window's just getting thrown open. You better counter that if you hope to stand up against it. Trapcat says plenty. We took that L in 2024 when we tied at the end of the season with the same 10-7 record. Yeah, exactly. And by the way, that was a season where, again, records tied. And as I said, I've had so many years where this has been the case where I can go back and hold on here. Hold on here just a second. Okay. Yeah, I got it. I'm glad you mentioned this, Trap Cat. Because you mentioned 2023, 24. We're on our way to winning this game. We're on our way to shutting down the Rams in this game. If we win this game and we get to the end of the season, now we are in the playoffs. Now we are the divisional winners. Devin Witherspoon in coverage out of the slot on Puka Nacua. Their legs look clean. No grab. Legs get tangled up, falls down. This, by the way, just happened to happen on, by the way, a call where they would have had to have gone for a field goal on this miss. That this was their last attempt on this play. So it happened also just to that thing where it happily reset their downs in addition to giving them the penalty. Where's the hold? Where exactly? Plays like that. But I'm not bitter. It's just that we can make excuses, right? I can sit there and go back on that again and again, make excuses. And I track it because partly I went back and tracked some of this last year to grab some of these plays because the Rams were already starting to moan about the 2-point conversion. I'm like, yeah, that's rich for you guys. But I mean, this is what, like, I just, the excuses sometimes in that fan base are just all over the place, constant. And it does get like a little annoying, just a tiny bit. Just a little bit. Telios, this is a great deal. I'm confident in the O-line to contain Garrett when it counts. Bring it. Bring it. Obviously, the more Jake talks, I'm starting to wonder if he's knowledgeable when it comes to other teams, not just Rams. Well, I think he knows the sport well. I think that I don't know if he gets in depth and understanding on to the nth degree at times. But yeah, he knows the sport. And totally Jake's got a right to be feeling himself. You know? I'm not when it comes to them making the trades or feeling hyped about their team or that this team should feel like it's in that front running place, I certainly think they should feel that absolutely. But then that's also different from trying to tear at our team and pick at our stuff too. especially for the team that won the Super Bowl last year. Just a reminder, if you got a comment you want to respond to, be Brando Hawks Nest, and I'll definitely respond to it. Abdi, it's disgusting, Brendan, how the media is even kissing the Rams' ass, saying Seahawks got lucky winning Super Bowl. ESPN media professional. Yeah, you're hearing it being like echoed by some people that are actually in the media too, and it does get it to an annoying place. I've long said I could care less about the media giving us props. I don't need you to throw us flowers. But then don't tear us down as champions. That's a whole nother flavor here. And I haven't seen this of any recent Super Bowl teams of media members doing this type of crap. But I have watched it this offseason, and it's growing increasingly frustrated. And I really do hope that the team takes it as a point of motivation, even more so coming into this year, because it's disrespectful. Nobody's got to sit there and kiss your ass and tell you're the best thing since this and that. But there's a difference between that and like, you guys really just got lucky with that bowl. And then you hear that over and over throughout an offseason. And now the media is starting to expound upon it. And it's like, what are we doing here? You're with me, Stoney. Luck winning Super Bowls. Come on. This sport, really? They're making luck their way to a Super Bowl? If that's the case, everybody in the sport would have won a Super Bowl by this point, right? Even those can't get right organizations. Chris says, we were 3 points away from sweeping the last season so they can cope. Their offset moves show they're nervous. Amen. Amen. Stephen Guillard, this whole story is the ultimate locker room bulletin board material that this team is going to remember. Macdonald will. Go Seahawks. Go Hawks, man. Chris said they already believed that they were the greatest last season. Using 3 first this offseason shows more desperation, but that's just my opinion. I mean, it doesn't speak to them being fine. I think you're on the trail of it. I think you're following the breadcrumbs here. And one action does not fit to the words that are coming out of their mouth a little bit, does it? Thomas says, I'm sorry, it smells like desperation move. Reminds me of Seattle losing Super Bowl 29 against New England, and all the talk was should have ran it. Then we made the Jimmy Graham trade. Rams are doing that. Yeah, it feels a little reactive, I think, Thomas, to your point, where they're trying to, react to last season. Every season's kind of new. And you don't do well by doing that. It's more if you want to have that plan in place and a vision in place for what you're trying to execute over a long term with your team, I think. That doesn't mean there aren't moves to be made at times where you're going to try to soup things up, but a little bit of extra souping up this offseason for a Rams team that was supposed to be close. And historically speaking, it hasn't worked great in the favor of teams that have taken these kind of big swing moves as far as really working out. It works out on paper, but the NFL is a brutal sport. It's a bitch of a sport at times in that you can do things right and you can do things and think you've stacked things up to the nines and suddenly it all collapses in on itself. Yeah, I like me some grilled cheese fries. Still my favorite overall sandwich. It's done right, especially the good bag of chips. I like it. Yeah, the 2025 Seahawks team will smack around that fluky 2021 Lamb team. Let's go. Dang, bud. I'm saying as a Seahawks fan, it just seems like the Rams are going all in. Stafford's last year, they wanted to make a move to put them over the top now. Media will always favor LA in every sport. True. And that's where it's, again, I have no problem them people saying that they're the favorite and that that's to me not disrespect to Seattle, because that is about making the judgment of where the roster is at right now and the moves they've made to really add on top. But it does seem to wind back around to Seattle. Some like they've been doing this and Seattle's just, they got lucky with that last year. We all know that. It's like you get the combination of the two. You don't just get the front side, you get the back side on that one. Warhammer, most underrated part is Byron Murphy's only 23 years old. Once he taps into that grown man strength, he's going to take a massive step forward, and he's already incredible. Beautifully put, man. Beautifully put. Misfits is what I'm saying. I meant Jake Ellenbogen. Jesse's actually cool. Drake London just got a 4-year, $141 million contract. Woo! Well, he's probably earned it. They don't got a lot of rest of a receiving corps. So they're kind of they're a bit over the barrel on that one. CM says it wasn't a fluke. McVay even admitted that he made a bad decision when the Rams had the lead. The Hawks just kept their heads up and knew they could still win. Yeah, I don't think that it's, and again, it's just something that's been, we're discussing a little bit today, but it's, I don't think it necessarily is how the outlook is of the Rams organization itself. I hope it is. I've said I have hoped that they would look at it in the same way. I don't know that they have necessarily in their outlook of the season last year. And there's respect. I have respect for the Rams are doing. I'm not. And this is about trying to tear them down to that they aren't a legitimate team or aren't very well run. They very much are. Some of this has been today a little bit about the debates on this better, that better. Yeah. Dank says the Thunder are so unlikable. I have no idea how SGA is an MVP player. Haven't followed NBA closely, but watched the Spurs series and he didn't look like a special player, just a flopper. Yeah, the soccer flopping has gotten into the basketball, and I do hope it never. I hope it doesn't get into football. I can't think that it will. I think that there's going to be a little bit of there's too much a bit more pride in the NFL to do that type of stuff. But it's painful watching him play and the Thunder overall do it. Like they've all taken a page out of it. And it's really like, it's kind of, shameless is the word that I would say. It doesn't feel like basketball when you're watching it. CR, hello from Germany. With so many moves, we are seeing the reasonable budget route, but man, we have to make moves at some point, trade deadline, to compete with the Rams at the end of the year. Trade deadline will be an interesting time this year for sure. And if John hasn't made moves up until that point, I'm guessing you're going to see a couple at the deadline or leading up to. Yeah, Brandon, it's great that the Spurs superstar Victor Wembanyama hates the young Thunder as much as Spurs and Seattle fans do. Thunder are the small market version of the Lakers. The money that gets favorable calls. They do. Yeah, the refs were definitely a bit in the pocket in the early parts of that series where you're like, does the NBA want to get the Thunder in? Is that what we're trying to do here? It was getting lame. Thankfully, the Spurs handled business. Oh, yeah, I think the Rams should be gloating. Ram fans should be gloating. You picked up the best defensive player of the year last year, a guy that's going to be a hell of an addition to the team. So it's as much as we're talking about some of the other factors here involving Seattle, when it does come to the Garrett move and the offseason and being aggressive and going for it, it's nothing but worth lauding to the Rams team. This is what you should do as an elite team is go for it to the maximum, especially as you're getting to a place where the window's more kind of shutting on the Super Bowl window, that is. So, I would never do anything but applaud what they've done. I think it's their home run moves all the way around. CMD, every team's going to circle our schedules for sure. We're getting every team's best, no one's overlooking you. And we may have gotten a bit of the benefit of that last year where some teams maybe week in and week out wouldn't have kind of looked at us in the same way, but that's what you're going to get this year. You're getting everybody's full. They know they got to bring all the guys that might be on the line of the injury. We need you this week. You got to play, rather than we try to rest you. Great football is just fun to watch, Sam. It's part of what I love about this division is we got, great football teams run right that know what they're doing, and that leads to great football. Catalyst says, what is this Nick Airbig extension? Oh, they went big, baby. Steelers said, we're either going to go big or go home. Steelers said, you know what? We're in our championship window right now. Let's sign our third edge rusher to a 4-year, $100 million deal with $42 million guaranteed. I know y'all like Nick Airbig out there. I know my chat likes him, but you like him like that? Are you champagne and yacht like for Nick Airbig? I'm more motorboat like with Nick Airbig myself. That's where I find myself, at least. Pricey little sum though, Catalyst. And kind of a cool deal to come down today because it instantaneously gives you a match point up against the Derick Hall deal, which just makes the Derick Hall deal feel that much better. Chris says the roundtable needs to vote on a time limit for Jake's rants. 125-minute run on a sentence 4 times a stream is a bit too much. I kid, as I don't dislike the guy. It's hard for me as a long-winded man to tell any other man to choose less words. But hey, I'm gonna have to give him his time to flow and go today. You know, if there's any time to let Jake go, you know, on a bender. This will be the week to do it. So we're gonna have to allow Leva today. You got to let him feel it. He's got every right to feel himself tonight. Brando, it's getting lost on some people that these moves the Rams are making are being done to catch up to the Seahawks. Bringing Aaron Donald out of retirement to compete with us reeks of desperation. Well, I mean, it does speak to the fact that they feel like they've got to do more than just this came down to a bad bounced ball, that everything last year was 50-50. Like I've said, that some of the Rams outlooks of this and fans' outlooks and the media's outlooks have been this, and the way they talk about this has been, though, if these two teams played 100 times, the Rams win 95 times. And if that was your thinking, then you didn't feel like you'd have to do a lot this offseason because, hey, the coin just came up wrong for us a couple times last year in a random way. And it's not likely for the odds for that to happen again, so let's just run it back. But that's not what they're doing, to your point. And whether it's desperation or just purely speaks to the fact the Rams recognize that there is a distance to be broached, because as much of the Ram fans might want to lock onto that, they were every bit, if not better than us last year, really. Well, we won 2 or 3 games. And the third game, the one game you won where you had 4 interceptions, still came down to a field goal kick at the end. A missed kick by us, or we win 3 games. And that's where, you know, that one kick goes through from an average Ram fan that might think this way, I'd ask them, you know, if that one kick goes through, does that change a little bit of your outlook then? And then if it does change your outlook, should maybe it not, because it's just kind of one kick, one play, sort of like the 2-point conversion. When you just kind of like lock in on these random singular plays in the games, that's not really a great way to go about it. You want to more look at the whole matchup. I'll see if I can get the Billy Madison bit ready tonight, Chris. Kyle, again, thank you for another $5 donation. I have a feeling karma is going to bite the Rams. If Stafford, Puka, or Garrett get injured, their season is over. Not being a homer, but karma exists. Well, it's one where even beyond karma, I think it's a little bit of like a page from the 49ers book where you're going to be star driven, and then you're going to be star driven by stars that are going to have some elder age to them. And that's you can win that way. You can break through that way, but it is one where if you're laying down the dice and you're trying to kind of play the odds and what tends to play out, a couple of those kind of guys get injured. And that doesn't have to be a death knell in itself. It only becomes a death knell, in my opinion, Kyle, when you look at the depth. You go, okay, I can anticipate that we're going to probably have an injury from these guys. So how is my depth set up to be able to accommodate that? And that's, of course, something I've been, kind of hammering on this outlook here for the last, couple of days, is that when you go down through the depth of the second and third stringers for the Rams, it's very lean. The only guy where there's really not a big drop off from the starter, the only guy on 22 starters is maybe Blake Corum. Everybody else is a freaking cliff. So you can get by with those starters. You can get by with Trent McDuffie And, even on Nate Landman, you lose Nate Landman in the middle linebacker. What's your answer behind him? And you lose a Devontae Adams. If those guys go full, it's great. A Devontae Adams for a CJ Daniel, a Devontae Adams for a Kenyatta Mumfield, a Devontae Adams for a Xavier Smith switch out. Tell me that's not a cliff. Tell me you're not falling into the Grand Canyon from one player to the next on that ordeal. And in my opinion, the Rams kind of need all these guys for this thing to go. They need those starting line guys out there for this to go. You start seeing the legs kicked out a little here, a little there. 2 years ago, the Rams had for instance, their 2 wide receivers, kind of a similar situation. Exact kind of similar situation 2 years ago. You had Puka beat up. Cooper wasn't at his best. He wasn't 100% at that time. You didn't have enough depth behind them to be able to accommodate it. Stafford couldn't get a lot done with that passing attack. The magical golden arm of Stafford cannot go when he doesn't have a receiving core that can't create separation. And this exists, and this is a part of the puzzle here. It really is right now, Kyle. So whether karma or whether this is the risk you take when you lean in this particular direction, when you decide to get older as a roster, comes out one way or the other. William, hey B, can we still get Spoon and Darnold done? Sam Darnold? I don't. You're not going to sign Sam Darnold to an extension, not yet, because you got 2 years remaining, and I would estimate that the team will probably wait on this one until next season, maybe through the end of the year this year, where they start to think about it. If there's a way to kind of put the contract together where it can make sense for everybody all around, but he's probably waiting through most of the year to get to that place. Spoon's deal I would expect to get done before training camp. I think his was going to be a little bit harder to get done than JSN's because he was a higher pick, and there's a little bit more of the bonus money on the books. You don't know if he was necessarily going to take the same kind of deal that JSN was with the just strap it on the back 2 years of my current deal. He might not have been open to that, William. And so, and then you got the Gonzalez, of course, negotiations going on at the same time. So you have 2 of the best corners in the sport, both due for a contract. Neither wants to be the first to sign, because whoever signs first going to get a little bit more money after that. Both of them have the same agent, but it will get done. It's just that's why it's kind of being held up a little bit on that front of things. Jimmy's Place, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, I've been tasting Seahawker tears all day. Cope tears. No coping here, man. We ready. We ready for you, Jimmy? Thank you for 3 donations in a row, man. C fans are preying on injuries, scumbags. I'm not preying on injuries, man. I'm not preying on injuries. I'll be at the full strength when we play you, bro. Let's go. Let's let the best man win. What I'm talking about is part of when you predict what's going to happen in NFL season is looking at what happened in prior years, of looking what happened with other teams built in this fashion or that fashion. That's what we're kind of trying to do, is analyze and project a little bit. And I think I've made some pretty good points about it not being a wishful thing as much of a gravity causes what comes up to go down. Father Time is undefeated, as they like to say. And if you build an older roster up at key positions, then you're a star-driven roster that can come back and bite you on the butt, traditionally speaking. But it's not a hope game. It's more of a reality game. Jimmy says, any team loses starters, they're worse. JSN outdone. No, that's where we're uniquely put together. And that's the place that I'm trying to make the case to you a little bit about separation and differentiation. And this is where I think, for some reason, on this, Jimmy, and I know you're really hardlined on this, but there's some Ram fans that just don't want to really have this discussion about differences of ways. And it isn't about even let me shade your organization while I prop up mine. It isn't that. It's about 2 different paths of directions the organizations are going to try to find their success. Both can work. There's not just one way to going and finding the Holy Grail here. But within that, it doesn't mean we're both trying to do the same thing. And I think that that's getting lost a little bit on you and lost on a lot of other Ram fans on this one, is that the depth and how we build things up is a part of the process. And it's a purposeful one. It's one where we're doing this versus how other teams like yourself do it in this other opposite direction. And because of that, when there is an injury, we can sustain it. We do have the depth. That depth report that I just showed you, ours is night and day difference from yours. Night and day. Our second run team, our third run team would run circles around your second and third run team. Now, maybe you don't need to use those guys. Maybe you guys are just healthy the whole year and you're able to just roll through. Maybe. But as I said, history doesn't lend itself well to that being the direction of the way that this is going to play out. And yeah, we do have the depth built in. So for instance, you mentioned JSN. Do we have a JSN replica on the roster to step in there? No. We do have Torrey Horton. We still have Rashid Shaheed. Still got Cooper Kupp in there. And I can kind of go step by step through this. We're returning, Jimmy, our entire starting line, offensive line wise, and then the entire backups. And then we added on top of that. We've got the backup corners in place. I've got 4 deep on my defensive tackle. I've got 4 deep on my edge group. You're really like 2 deep on your edge group. So it's just a difference of, it ain't because you guys, it isn't, again, a shade to the Rams organization that they did something wrong here. It's just that they chose to go more front loaded, more to the star driven power model mode. And that might work and it might be ultimately successful, but it is 2 teams going in 2 different approaches here. And part of what brought our success last year, Jimmy, was being able to call upon that depth and not miss a beat. Jimmy, thank you for another $2 donation. It says, can't wait till Jake educates you tonight when you cope. I don't know whether there's any cope going on, man, but I appreciate all of your donations and support. And I'm definitely looking forward tonight with the round table. And I'm sure me and Jake are going to have a lot of fun, having a lot of good back and forth on the round table as we tend to do. Rob Brando, by the way, it was glorious to see you sing the praise of Hall. Seems like you have 100% converted to the Derick Hall truther camp, and we welcome you. Ha ha ha. Well, he's definitely grown on me with time. I would say that. I liked him coming out. I was never down on Derick. I think he was just, there was at times a lot of the fan base this offseason has talked about him in terms of it's a no-brainer that you should sign him to a Boye Mafe contract extension right now. And I'm going, huh? I don't want to pay him $20 million a year right now for what we've got from him. I think he could become that player. And I think that there's still some more growth to be had, but that would have been where, I don't want to be there. And this contract, Rob, is 4 years, $44 million. So, you're half the amount people were telling me they're willing to sign him for this offseason. And that absolutely isn't a bargain for what he is as a player at that point, especially to get him locked up ahead of time like this. So, it's all about at times, both the contract and what you're paying. And are you getting in right and you're getting in at a good price, or are you overpaying, or are you paying more than any other team would have paid? Like, the Steelers sort of are negotiating against themselves on this Nick Arabic deal. I mean, I don't know if there's a team out there that's looking to step up into line to pay him $100 million. And that's what I worry about with the edge group when it came to Derick Hall a little bit, is that it's become this position in football that just becomes rubber stamped as far as giving out these big major contracts, whether the production really fits to it or not. But this is a great deal. And Hall's a really good player, a perfect fit to the scheme and what he does here with Macdonald. And it's an awesome deal by John. John having a really, really good offseason and just continuing one after another to just put some really solid deals together and set the future up really nicely for this team on top of the foreseeable future. CMs, as a Rams fan, I cannot stand the hype. I feel like the Hawks' greatness is way overlooked. It's a little just bit how it's felt. And I don't want to make it seem like it's a major complaint, because at the end of the day, look, we're happy with what we got. We don't need national attention. We don't need national praise. I'm really not one of those kind of guys, but it has been odd to watch. CM, it's been a little bit strange to see. And it isn't, again, to come at the cost of where the Rams are at either. The Rams are a great team. And as I said last year, and I think it's going to be the case this year, and I think the NFL agrees with this, that these are the 2 best teams in the NFL by far. And it's unique, and it's weird to look at it that way. And it's kind of hard to wrap your head around that. But I think that is the case. And that means that both teams are really close to the edge on that greatness side of it. But I do think there's some overlooking here in certain spots on that, Sam, to your point, just a bit. I don't think you're trolling, man. I always appreciate, look, Ram fans in here, and even our guy, Jimmy Place, who eventually I'm going to get into a well-articulated discussion at some point that will not just be filled with insults back and forth. Like, we'll eventually get to a spot where we can have a cognitive discussion. But we love having all fans in here, man, even Ram fans in here, and especially under respectful tones, even in disagreement. It's all good. Joseph, no word on McIntosh yet, man. Have a feeling he's a little bit still behind the ball in the rehab program. Man, he says, Jake about to go on a crazy rant today. I'm calling minimum 30 minutes. Mike might get one word in. Big ups to Bradford losing weight. He's a big boy for sure. Did Bradford lose a little bit of weight this offseason? That's good. Chad Alpha says, this is like when the Lakers got Malone and Payton. Ooh, I like that reference. I think that makes us the Pistons. That makes us the bad boys at this point, Chad. That wasn't bad boy era Pistons. That was Ben Wallace Pistons. That was a hell of Pistons. We got some similarities to that Pistons team. Deep, defensive driven. Actually kind of a low-key, cool comparison. I think the Rams, to your point, have been, probably the best team in the league at, look, it's not just the throwing the first round picks and saying F them picks, but it's the actual getting productivity from the first round picks you're throwing. For instance, this is the place that it remains to be seen if John, when it comes to, he can do well with things outside the first round, but when it comes to first round picks, the track record has not been good. Percy Harvin, Jimmy Graham, Jamal Adams, these trades have been busts all the way around. But you have in the Rams 2 first-round picks for Ramsey, home run. You get a Super Bowl. I don't care whether or not you get the 6-7 years there with the guy there. You go in, you bring that guy in, and he gets you the Super Bowl. It's well worth it to do that. And you get the Stafford trade as well that has proven to be a very smart one in addition there. So a rare team. A lot of other teams have got a lot of failures on the books on that. Rams have got a lot of recent successes. I'm with you, Brian. I think if the luck BS continues to keep pushing forward, it's easy to see where the motivation can come from with these players. Players are a prideful group anyway, and to go do what you accomplished last year and to kind of have it sort of rubbed in your faces that it's some randomized reason as to why you won it, it can't sit well. It wouldn't sit well in my gut as a competitor. Yank Bud says it definitely isn't lucky for us. We know that. The Seahawks team was dominant in this NFL. Amen. We know what's up here. It's definitely, I don't think there are any Hawk fans that are confused on this, but see, I love it. Brings out one of the great old quotes. Luck is when determination and opportunity meet. That is it, man. Beautiful quote. Manny says it would be cinema to trade for Verse at the deadline. Fits this game perfectly. Young could be Ernest 2.0. I was wondering about this last night, if the Rams were like, we'll make this move, but you got to forever promise never to move Jared Verse to the Seattle Seahawks. And I wondered a little bit if they did it. I mean, you guys can't tell me there's no chance they didn't say that to the Browns, right? Like, you can tell me that it's an unlikely chance, but it ain't 0%. And the funny part about this is he is a pure fit to this defense in the way that he plays. The whole, well, he's just a power bull rush guy. It's like, yeah, perfect fit. And just, 25 years old. Maybe he don't want to be in Cleveland. Maybe he don't want to sign with Cleveland. I'm just saying. It would be the most funniest thing ever. You talk about having a motivated player too. Daniel Brando, thoughts on Bills and Ravens being ahead of us in odds for winning the Super Bowl? Both never made an appearance in their window, and their windows are closing, both with a new first-time head coach. I think it's more of a representation of about the tough division we play in than it is about them being so much better than us, and potentially the weaker divisions that they get to play in. Ravens get to take on the Browns. Ravens get to take on probably a middle-ish of the road, kind of Steelers team. Just it doesn't feel like that's necessarily as strong a division as it's been at all times in the past. Likewise, the Bills are really well set up. I think the Bills are maybe as well set up as any division in football to go out there and dominate their division. Even the Bengals are at least like functional up against the Ravens. Like the Ravens have functional teams and Steelers and the Bengals that'll play them, but they're still not good teams necessarily. Whereas New England's got the hellacious schedule. They're going to walk through Miami. They're going to walk through the Jets. I think the Bills' schedule is actually fairly well set up overall. They play the Raiders. Well, there's some difficulties there. I don't think they're the better team, but I would just estimate it's that, Daniel, of more of like the AFC being wide open and the difficult path they see. Not that I agree with it, though. I think the Hawks should still have better odds. CM says, I don't believe the Rams or the Hawks were the better team, play 10 games, and the wins would alternate. We play each other in close games. That's where it's at, man. There's not one team way better than the other. It's that this is a great rivalry matchup with two teams that are really close to each other, two of the best teams in the NFL by far. And it's going to be a bloodbath, you know? It's going to be a brawl. Each person's going to lose maybe a finger, an ear, part of a nose. Rob says, Brando, if Jake even somewhat gets close to the fluke talk, ask him what he thinks the NFC championship score would be if Woolen didn't draw that penalty. Probably ends up being a 3-score game. Agreed. And I think to Jake's credit, I don't think he will delve into that territory. Uh, 1990 back. Brandon, awesome work this offseason. Do you think with the ammo in the draft next year and the Super Bowl win last year, we should keep our powder dry and try to go for the long haul? It's part of my wait and see approach right now is to wait and see how the season plays out and what you really need to do at the trade deadline. It's why I'm not really impelled to make a move right now and say, like, let's let this go. And maybe we'll walk into the season and find everything is rolling great and there's not a lot of necessities to your team and young guys are developing and you're getting some impact from the rookie draft class and you're feeling good about it. And that you get to the deadline and maybe you make a below the radar kind of move, 1990 Bach, maybe you make one of the pick kind of moves, but then you just sit on the rest of the draft capital in the name of, we're going to continue to build this strong for the now and the future. We're not just going to try to keep a little window, but we're going to really bust this window wide open. And I am a little bit enamored by the idea as a possibility, as a direction so few teams would choose to kind of go because everybody would be all about a little bit like, the Rams approach this offseason where when it's your time, strike now, strike hard, strike fully, rob for tomorrow, for today. Maybe not. Yeah, maybe this will be one of the lessons that John learned from his first time of going through this kind of process before in winning a Super Bowl. I like where you're thinking on it. Thank you for the kind words, and I'm open to it. I'm open to going hard at the deadline too, but that's where I just want to get to that fork in the road at the trade deadline to make the move based on intelligently where really the team is at, the division's at, how the season's forecasting a little bit. Ja says, sorry if this is a repetitive question, but is there someone you think the Seahawks should pick up right now? No, it's all good. This is the question that's at the forefront of any Seahawks fan's mind right now, especially coming on the heels of yesterday. So it's understandable in every way. Unfortunately, there's just not a ready-made guy that stands out that makes a lot of sense right now. We don't know if Max Crosby's available. There's not really any guys that are available on the market from teams that are in a kind of lame state. Most of the guys that you can bring up as far as possibilities, somebody brought up Zach Seiler earlier. I think it's Thomas Cox. We've got TJ Watt's been bandied about a little bit. Well, these guys have a lot of bonus money on the books, which doesn't allow them to be moved in a deal. So this could change to the deadline when we get teams that are in contention mode right now, who have players on their roster right now, like let's say the Chargers, for instance. They're in contention mode. They think they're going to win next year. They're going for it. Okay, well, if they start out with one win in their first 5 games, and if they go 2-5, 2-6, is that a team that's then maybe willing to move a Khalil Mack? That's the kind of move you got to kind of maybe wait for at this point down the line a little bit. They got to be the Sonics if they come back. HHG, yeah. I do not find myself motorboating. I was on a motorboat. I wasn't motorboating. Did I say motorboating? I didn't mean that. I meant on a motorboat. Chris B, thoughts on Chris Broswell, if he's going to be cut by the Bucs, possible trade, maybe a day 3 pick for him. Also, give me Clowney as well. Chris Broswell. Oh, edge. No, I wouldn't go that route. former second round pick, but 6'3", 255. So he has some good size to him. But I mean, he's part of the reason that they have to draft Ruben Bain this last year. Very limited production, very hard time getting even on the field. I'd rather go with Clowney as the extra edge at this point. He is a young guy, but indeed, we saw our needs and excelled at approaching him. You did, man. Great offseason for you guys. Yeah, Bud Bennett the whole time, his intention was to move the team out of town from the jump. That was the whole, everything else was just theatrics. Sean McLeod, I'd like to see the Falcons implode and we get Bijan at the deadline. That'd be fun. I love Bijan. I think he's better than Jeremiah Love, that's for sure. Says Rams are definitely trying to catch the Seahawks. That's why they give their future. You're on it, man. Jazz says, I don't believe the Seahawks are a complete roster yet, as is I think we lose out to LA. I mean, no coordinator. I don't know on those factors there, Jazz. I mean, you mentioned in the front part of it, you say, I don't know if the Seahawks are a complete roster yet, but then the points that you make says, I mean, we have a new offensive coordinator, a new assistant GM, and a new owner. So like the roster would have nothing to do with those angles of things. Also, what part of this roster is not complete? You're returning your entire offensive line back with all of the backups. You're returning all of your starting tight ends along with all of their backups. You're returning all of your starting wide receivers within all of their backups. You're returning all of your running backs, with the exception of Walker, who you replaced with a first-round pick in Jadarian Price. Then we flip it over to the defensive side of the ball. You're returning all of your defensive tackles from last year, adding Devin Eastern from the draft. You have 4 edges that you're rocking. You've got backup linebackers and Tyrese Knight, especially they can play both the Mike and the Will if they've got to come in there on top of the starting 2 guys that are rocking and rolling, including All-Pro and Ernest Jones. 2 starting safeties, along with a backup in Bud Clark to play either the free or the strong. Backup cornerbacks, along with starters and Nicky Minwari and Devin Witherspoon and Josh Jobe. So I mean, it's about as complete a roster as you get, quite frankly. You could maybe pick at it as far as saying you want to see more impact on the front side, the front line, but the starters and the depth are there, sure. Appreciate it. You see him? Grandizer Brando, did they ask already Al Pacino and Christopher Walken's view on the Derick Hall extension? By the way, those 2 Brendan Nelson AI video covers on your videos are funny and good. My guy's been just doing a great job over there. My clips guy, super happy by the work he's turning in over there, which is just making me so encouraged. And yes, first, Al is happy, big happy now. We're doing things every day. They're not paying attention. But it's going down. You look at this deal, 4 years, $44 million. It doesn't get better. Nick Herbig, who is that? Who? I don't know. Not somebody I want. Not $25 million per year. No. What about you, Christopher Walken? My Al's a little struggling today. I love the deal, Al. It doesn't get better. Cheap, young, edge rusher, still got upside. The valued, really, if you want to break it down, all of this, and then you get them for pennies on the dollar. I love it. Great deal. John, this is, I don't think the league realizes how deep the Seahawks are. No, I don't. And it's, as I try to come back and make the point on this too, and I think you are picking up what I'm putting down on here in the chat, and that this is also a thing that's been made to be done on purpose. Why are you moving for a gunner and moving a 2028 seventh round pick for a gunner who's a long in the tooth vet in this league? What team does that? The team that's committed to truly building the best roster, not the best starters, pure and simple. It's something that's done tactically. And, maybe we come back and say, well, you should have spent less time on your depth and more time to your frontline starters, but the depth has been built true and on purpose. And few teams take this approach with their roster building. So many, I think, are just more to the front line, more to the starters, and that's where their concentration solely lies. And that's where I think that the Hawks look at as this is the market opportunity for us to build a better roster, to build a better team, because so many other teams go this other direction in how they want to build it. Jimmy, thank you for all the donations again. More back to back. You have one fluky season and B acts like a dynasty. No, I just act like you mentioned fluky, and I go, what NFL team in NFL history has this ever been mentioned as? You Rams are coming up with this as a reference. This is the first time I've ever heard this in NFL history, that any team has ever been referenced as that. And you don't ever really deal with any of my points, where it's like, how do you go fluky when we had to beat you guys twice? We had to win our division twice, including the playoffs. We had to play you a third time. You had an extra game to make sure that it wasn't fluky, and you didn't get it done. We earned it. It's more of the definition of that being that it's earned at that point. It's on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Yet you use this word that's got over here, which is not close to the reality of the way that the situation played out. Jimmy says, we heard the same nonsense in 2021 and we won it all. We shall see, my man. We shall see. Entire nation talking Ram football feels great. They will definitely be doing that. And look, it's well earned. You make a big move like this on the heels of the McDuffie trade coming off the season they did. When it does come down to this, the Rams have every right to have the shine they do. Dogzilla, thank you for the $2 donation. Doesn't Jake look like a Barry Manilow fan? Jake gets some strays today. Oh. Thank you, Dogzilla. Jimmy says the Seahawks success fizzled like a fart in the wind. Fart that's about to blow right back in your Ram faces, I'll tell you. And we had some Mexican for lunch. Sean, thank you for the $2 donation. It says Jimmy is PTSD manifestation of the Hawks 92 season. Let's go. Well, he does have the Michael Myers mask in his emoji, and I think they had a Halloween come out that year, if I'm not mistaken, Sean. To your point. Jimmy's feeling himself, man. He's feeling rightfully so. Al Brown, thank you for the $5 donation. Just a fact here for all Lamb fans, we, Seahawks, have 2 Super Bowls in 50 years. Same number Lambs have in 90 years. Hush. Hush, Lamb fans. Hush your mouth. Yeah, and we didn't have to be moved between 3 cities to do it either. Right, Al? We all did it in our same city the whole time. We didn't have to get bounced around because we had lack of fan support to get it done. In fact, our fans would throw themselves at the wheels of a moving truck, literally, if they tried to move our team out of town. Great points. Great points, Al. Great points. Jimmy says, I guarantee a ring as long as Stafford is healthy. That's a hell of a guarantee, man. Because, I mean, there's other guys on this team that could be not healthy, and that still is not going to be enough to get it done if you have a couple of key injuries at key spots without the depth. But, yeah, Stafford is a big part of it as well, of him staying upright. And if he does, that changes the outlook of this team greatly, for sure. And the part that stands out, again, as I try to talk a little bit to you about the depth on this, is just that last year you had a Jimmy Garoppolo you could bring out. You know, a functional starter in this league, a guy that's won games in this league, a guy that started games in this league. You know, next year, you're not going to have that. That guy's going to be sitting on the bench, and you got, you know, Stenson Bennett and Ty Simpson. You know, it's like, even if he goes out for 4, 5, 6 games, you know, it's like, it would probably sink your guys' hopes at that point if it goes that direction. Jimmy, again, thank you for all of your support today. Nobody cares about you guys because everyone knows it was a complete and utter fraud that they won. Fizzled like a fart in the wind. Rams are the face of the NFL. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you kind of like could back up a little bit what you're saying. I mean, I know you're speaking in terms of like, well, this is just known, is it? But you're not actually backing anything of what you're saying up with any kind of information. Which, look, you're donating, so feel free to post what you want to post at that point. But at the end of the day, you're not really backing it up. How do we fizzle when we're returning all of our starters back? How does a team? Again, all the points I made, and you're not going to address them, so I'm not going to continue on with it. But there's a lot of good discussion to have back and forth if you want to have that discussion, but you just simply saying this is a fact and then not having to back anything up, you're free to do it, but you're not convincing anybody. So maybe you're trying to convince yourself, but you're certainly not convincing me. And you're certainly not convincing any of the audience out there by these kind of comments. You want to say that this is the truth of something or this is the fact of something and it's something that's kind of wild and like in reference to fluke and luck and winning Super Bowls in the NFL. This is the first time I've ever heard of this being a thing. You Ram fans are just kind of coming up with this on your own. And that if that's the truth, okay, you can sell me on this, how this is, but then you're not backing up. You're saying it just is a fact. Okay, fair enough. We feel pretty good about where we're at. CM says, I wish the media would calm down and just let us earn our wins. Oh, it's going to go even more. And it's overdrive now, CM. I mean, the Garrett trade is going to push it to the great beyond. And they got a right to be hyped up in that way. That's part of this thing, I think, where we get to the nuance, it's every right to be hyped up for what they've done. Chris says, Rick Astley seems like a Jake guy. Jake's guy. Misfit Ram fans celebrating a fantasy Super Bowl win while the Seahawks fans are basking in an actual Super Bowl win in 2026. Let's go. Thank Bud. Seahawks have to be one of the biggest underdogs ever to win the Super Bowl. Going into the season with the expectations they had and to get the Lombardi has to be one of the greatest underdog sports stories. Amen, man. You saw it coming. Nobody saw it coming. Yeoman says, my money will be on the world champions this year too. Let's go, Yeoman. Kyle, Brando, DeMarcus Lawrence seems like he's going to play out his entire contract. He said retirement was never a consideration and he had his most fun in his career in Seattle. Love the culture. I'd love to see it because I think that there's a way that you're building the model of your edge group here that can be one that's sustainable. That is a different, much like some of the other parts of the roster, you're doing things a little bit differently than other teams. Other teams, the sole concentration becomes on get the front two guys as good as we possibly can, and then we'll kind of get by on the backups. And the backups will play limited. The backups will be infrequently out there. And what Seattle's done instead is they say, no, let's build up the 4, let's build up the 5 deep. And we're going to rotate them through and we're going to keep them fresh. And this is such a cool thing to be able to do, especially for elder players like DeMarcus that have played a lot of football, to keep them in that place for a long season, to keep them healthy for a long season, but then to also keep them to be at their best at the end of the year because they don't have this, insane amount of snaps on their back. Just for instance, with DeMarcus Lawrence, we had him at 625 snaps last year, which, there's some defenses out there with edges. Like if I go over and I look at, 625 snaps for him, I think he might've missed like one game last year. And then you go to Jared Verse, who had to play 856. So that 625 snaps for Lawrence is with all of the playoffs included, right? And yeah, the Rams played a couple playoff games too, but that's with him taking 250, 300 snaps less than Verse. That adds up over the course of a year. Jimmy, if your term to us is we're a mediocre franchise, and since we've walked into the NFC West, we've won the division more than any other team in the division. We've gone to more Super Bowls than any team in the division has gone to Super Bowls, and we've won if I'm not mistaken, more Super Bowls than anybody in the division since we walked into it in 2001. So if that makes us mediocre, what does that make your Rams, if that's the truth of it? If you're falling short of us, this mediocre thing through this timeline, when does that make you? As I keep saying to you, Jimmy, you keep using certain words, but I don't think you know what those words mean. That was a hell of a trade for that Goff. That Graf Stafford trade was great. And not an easy one necessarily to do because like they determined with Goff that he was topped out. And that's a guy that put up a legit season, 4,600 yards, 30 plus touchdowns. You know, it would have been so easy to just kind of just like, well, just keep running it back the same with it. Al, I missed my super chat. I thought I got there, Al. I just took a little bit of time. It took me a minute to I was a little bit late on the acknowledgement with it there. My bad. Just a fact here for Lamb fans. We Seahawks have 2 Super Bowls in 50 years. Same numbers the Lamb fans have in 90 years. Hush, Lamb fans. Hush your mouth. And that's that point I'd make is that since we walked into this, into this division 25 years ago, we've won more than anybody else. More division titles, more Super Bowl appearances, more Super Bowl wins. What's the metric you want to use? We've kind of been on the better end of this division since that point. So Rams are on a current really strong run, but we've had a long period of success here. 4 Super Bowls in 20 years. This team's really well put together. Appreciate you, Al. I was a little slow on it, but I did get on there. Clowney's been with 7 teams. Insane. Yeah, I think he's just. I think he's okay with being a gun for hire. And if you look at him and what he's made over the course of his career, he's made out very well from the approach he's taken as that gun for hire. But Clowney would be a great addition to this team. He's the one guy that I've had a chance to meet with on the current Seahawks team, was able to play video games with him a couple of years ago when he was with the Seahawks, and a really cool guy, super competitive. You might think with this guy being the gun for hire and he goes from this team to this team to that team that he's not he doesn't have the fire in his gut and he doesn't want to get after it, but not the case with him at all. This is a guy that absolutely wants to win. Grandizer Hawksnest, Brando, can you discuss the trend of trading draft picks for future drafts that in past exceeded the norm? Browns got a 2028 or 2029 draft pick in the deal. 2033 pick, any? I think you can only go 5 years into the future on the draft when you talk about trading future draft picks. And you can't trade more than 3 first rounders, I think, as far as that goes. So maybe it's only 3 years. It might only be 3 years. I think you can only go 3 years into the future on the draft pick trades. And then like the Browns trade, they took a 2028 second rounder and then a 2029 third rounder from the Rams. Dax says, I don't know why some Ram fans won't allow us to acknowledge they had a great offseason, but still like our chances with how young a complete Seattle is. Special teams is still our X factor in a match. Yeah, it sort of has to be a bit in, it's the world we live in at times where there's this, if you're not with us, you're against us, or if you're saying this thing, then you must be saying that to the other side of it, right? And it's more of like, well, no, both of these things can be true. Rams had a tremendous offseason. They made moves that are worth being fully lauded without discrepancy or without, trying to sort of, add a but in there. And then also and also the Seattle Seahawks have one of the great young rosters in the NFL and have every reason to believe that they might even be better this next upcoming season. Now, both of those things can be true. Well said. Trap. I just told a buddy the other day about Christopher Walken doing Bud Light commercials, and he was shocked. They pay well. I can't act anymore. I'm too tired. Long days. I like beer, Bud Light, tasty. Pay well. Love it. Thank you, Town Biz. Appreciate you, man. Walken thanks you, Town Biz. Very kind of you. Walken bullish on the Seahawks. Rams, good too. Yes, they'll be fine. Seattle will be great. CM says, I see our offseason signs, but sit here and I'm like, what about our special teams that flipped close games on us? It does feel like one of those little places there, CM, where there's been a lack of a little bit of acknowledgement by McVay, where they just kind of are thinking like it was random that it was bad last year. But as I was saying even a week ago, it's like Xavier Smith is still due to be your punt returner right now. Xavier Smith, the same guy that obviously looked like in the game against us, he did not look comfortable returning punts. Had the ball go flipping off of his helmet, and that's just one aspect of it. But it doesn't seem like there's been a tremendous addressing of it. It's not like you guys went into the draft, for instance, and day 3 targeted a couple guys that could just be special teams demons for you. Still kind of feels like a part of the team that you're dealing with as kind of a bit of a redheaded stepchild as far as kind of a necessary evil. But we'll see. Maybe they've got a plan there in place. Yeah, Dak, you touch on it. I don't like the fluke thing when this should be actually to the other end of the scale. It should actually be one of the most impressive type of wins for a Super Bowl team in recent memory. And there's a lot to go in alignment with this. But the pathway, the journey, the difficulty, the degree of difficulty, it was not one that was made order to be easy. In fact, it was made to be supremely tough. And it should then be to the other side of it, Dak. You're right about that. Dak says, Jimmy, send me money, bro. Zippy, soon we can move on to what's important. Who's going to win the job as our gunner wide receiver? Should make great for Hard Knocks drama. Well, it's kind of one of the last battles that's left to be had, huh, Zippy? No news, Martin, yet on Kenny McIntosh, which I'm guessing in itself is a bit of an indicator of things going somewhat slowly. I think you guys need another receiver, CM. And I do think that it's going to come down to that pick in the first round. It's as good as you like your situation right now if you're a Rams fan. How much would you like your situation even more if you just had Garoppolo remain as your backup and then you went out there and you took Mekhi Lemon? Or you took Ruben Bain and give yourself reinforcement on that edge group that you don't have really right now. That would be an even scarier proposition to me. And the hamstring should worry you, man. He's 33. He's played a lot of football. And you're not relying on him to be like what we have CM with our Cooper Kupp role, where it's like Cooper's had a long career. Cooper's gotten older. Cooper's gone through the injuries. I can't lean on Cooper to be an 80-catch, 1,000-yard guy. Can I lean on him to be a 50-catch, 750-yard guy? Yeah, but I feel like with you guys with Devontae's, there's going to be a little bit more of a lean to need him to be closer to the former rather than the latter. And then that just puts that much more. It's like that load balance game that I talked about with DeMarcus Lawrence. And it's like you have a really cool weapon and a good weapon, an effective weapon. You want to use it, but it's hard to have that balance to the fact that there's some age here. And I got to make sure I'm being aware of that because I use it too much and I'm going to break it. And I don't have to necessarily do that math with a younger player. Zippy, I grew up in SoCal. Everyone was fans of other teams because the Rams games were always blacked out. Al, Brando, have you made it to a game in Lumen Field? Yeah, I've seen a couple games there. I was there a few years ago. I might be out there for game 1 of this year, depending on if the Roundtable does an event out there. It does get hard for me, Al, to do one now as much as ever because the biggest views we get on this channel, and boy, they just absolutely blew up last year, especially into the playoffs. I mean, You know, we're having some games where we're doing like 50,000 views on my live coverage of the games. It's really hard not to be doing that for every game at that point, you know, Al. It's just worthwhile for so much of the growth to the channel and everything. But I'm sure I'll get out there. Yeah, CM, I think you're picking up what I'm putting down. It's not really shade about Ty. It's more of just about like, to me, it was more about the maximization of 2026. And so much of the 2026 draft of the Rams was about 2027, 2028. Dogzilla, thank you for the $2 donation. Flurry's beard reminds me of what Flurry's beard reminds you of what ZZ Top tune. Ooh. Tush. I don't know why, man. A beard like that's getting some tush. Imagine walking being a play-by-play guy. Some people want me to do that at some point. First down, second and 3. Tight formation here by the Rams. Stafford drops back the pass. Quick set, gets rid of it. Overthrow. What was he doing? I don't know. Communion was great. I was back watching the Angel movie a couple days ago too. There was Prophecy or whatever. That was a good one as well. Plays the angel Gabriel. Yeah, based on a true abduction story. Rams feels like the Packers when they got Reggie White. Yeah, I think it's an equivalency place. I mean, both about the same age, same kind of players of their generation. But Donnie, how you doing, man? Jimmy, thank you for the $2 donation. You are so wrapped up in your daddy Rams. I love it. You caught me, Jimmy. You've outed me finally. Jimmy, another $2 donation. Rams are the smartest franchise in sports. It's not even close. Not basketball, not baseball, not just football. All of sports and the Olympics and international play and soccer and even the illegal cockfighting rings that exist in South America. All of it. Appreciate you, Jimmy. Trap Cat, Ty Simpson's in a great place, man. Soak it up is right. Just be a sponge around Stafford. Prophecy's a great film. It's good performances, just a cool little story. Nias says, James, the jabroni, the San Antonio Spurs and Seahawks are much more intelligent franchises. The San Antonio Spurs have a strong case in all sports. Lambs, when you just have the market. Yeah, if the Spurs can especially get this done with almost kind of like 3 generations of championships over a couple decades span, that's very impressive. You kind of have the Duncan Robinson kind of crew and how they rolled, and then you had just the Duncan, Ginobili, Parker crew and how they kind of rolled, and then now you'd have this kind of, it would be very cool the way they do that. Did I see Christopher Walken SNL spoofing Prophet? I didn't, man. I got to check that out. I didn't know that existed. That sounds great. Jimmy getting drunk in the comments. Yeah, you could people see him. And look, I know I'm mowing a little bit about some of the Ram fans, and you can see this with Jimmy. And Jimmy's a little bit of like, Jimmy's a good snapshot of what I've been getting from some Ram fans out there at times. And it's not all of you guys. I'm not a broad brush guy. There's a lot of great Ram fans. And one of the cool parts about doing the round table is I've been able to be exposed to both Rams and 49er fans that are really good people and love their team and are just great fans, and then come in and just want to have some great discussion. And as I always say, I really appreciate that. It expands our perspective of things to not just have an echo chamber or us within our own box. I know it can sometimes frustrate my own people where they're just like, this guy, just get him out of here. They're not Hawk fans. But I really do like it. I think it does aid into really allowing us to expand our field of vision. And the more you can expand your field of vision, the less you can get out of your own backyard, so to speak, and understanding things, I think the better. I think you're better served for it. And so, no, I know you don't cap, man. I've appreciated the discussion with you today, and your representation of why I want to have this kind of openness here on this channel in this manner. is that this is what our community is all about. Is it's not really about me yakking. I know I speak a lot and talk a lot here, but it's really as much about this community and this chat and the topics and discussions we can have and how free flowing it can kind of be, which is just that much more opened up when everybody's on that kind of, same page. And I am eventually going to get Jimmy there. I'm telling you, I'm going to bring him around slow but surely with Jimmy. He's in the horror mask right now. He's playing the part of the evil character, but soon enough, we'll have him out there with like John McClane emoji on his deal. We'll make him a good guy yet. How much has Jimmy given me? It's got to be hundreds of dollars at this point. It's not the first time he's come in with a multitude of donos. So, and I appreciate it. You've made it when Ram fans are donating to you just simply to tell you how trash your team is. No greater representation than that as far as that you're doing well. The sport is much appreciated. And with that note, we will wrap it up today with a nice little 2 hours in the books as I've got the round table tonight and I need to get some food in me and prepare for Jake because I got to prepare spiritually for what I'm about to go through tonight. I know what I'm going to get. I know what we're facing. So we will wrap it up here on that note. If you guys can do me that favor today and hit that like button, sub on up. I know that I ask it very often, but it is very helpful as far as allowing this channel to really grow and show out here on YouTube and just to continue to allow us to expand as we are on the road to 30,000 subscribers. We've got the roundtable on Thursday. I'm trying to maybe get a potential show scheduled up here with Brendan at some point as well. So just more going to continue to roll on, and any more news keeps coming down. It seems like every day there's something new that's coming down from the Seattle Seahawks that's worth talking about. You never know here. So we will stay on our toes here this offseason, keep it rolling at you guys here as we are bit by bit edging closer and closer here to the start of the NFL season. I thank you guys today for watching. Appreciate all of the great discussion. Thank you to all of the folks that donated again today. Jimmy Dogzilla, Sean McLeo, Dart, Kyle, Feed Me, Thomas, Dogzilla, Mick Frewer. Appreciate all of you guys. 12 for life. You guys are amazing as always on your support and donations to the channel. Look, Rams have made great moves. Seahawks have made great moves this offseason. Why were these the two best teams in the NFL last year? Because this is what they do in their off seasons. It isn't just a one move thing. It isn't that you just got this one thing right, and so everything else will just cascade on down from there. It's that you're individually stacking up decision after decision, that if you unpack those individual decisions, you can see the intelligence within them. There could be some debate, but I don't think you're going to see anybody online debating the fact this Derick Hall deal is a smart deal, is well-spent money. It's a great deal for the team, great for the edge group. And it's that type of thing that John's done again consistently throughout this offseason, time and time again, which is going to allow this team to continue to not only contend again in 26, but allow this to be a sustained contending team moving on into the way future at this point. No limitations. And as I've said, the window has just started to crack open as far as the Super Bowl window goes. Appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Thank you for the great discussion. We will be back soon. And yeah, I know everybody's crowning the LA Rams. I know everybody's saying they've already won the trophy. Should we even play the season, or should we just hand them the trophy right now? Don't listen to any of that. Don't give that any heed. Your team's the champions. You're the ones they're gunning for. So let them talk, let them pronounce, let them prognosticate, let them all play the role of psychics. And then we're going to get into the year next year, and the year's going to wind through. And once again, you're looking at your team stacking up wins, edging towards further and further and more dominance as the season winds along. And it's all part of the plan and what they baked in. So don't you forget about that. Let them have their talk. Let them have their moment right now in June. We'll have our moment in February. Don't you ever forget. Don't you dare ever forget. Go Hawks!